We're joined now by Dr. Modesto Maidique. He is the former president of FIU and also happens to be an MIT-trained engineer. Welcome.
Yes,
we're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
So why don't you just start with giving us your overall impressions in the days that have unfolded since this tragedy, and whether you would have allowed traffic to flow underneath the bridge at the stage that it was in?
Well, this was the saddest day in the 50 and some odd year history of our university. I've spent the last couple of days going around campus talking to students, and what they feel is shock, sadness, surprise. Some are still in disbelief. They're saying this couldn't have happened. So I think it is the worst day, in our history. But my motto is you move forward. You don't move backward.
Mitch, let me ask you, the Associated Press had a report today that the Florida Department of Transportation ordered FIU and its contractors a number of years ago to make changes to the bridge's main tower, and that possibly this caused the project to be behind schedule and overpriced, the cost overruns, and maybe this was hurried. I mean, I know you're retired as a president of the university, and probably gladly so right now, but you have an engineering background.
Sure.
Do you think that maybe they were in a hurry to finish this project?
Well, basically, as an engineer, I'm a designer. And you give me a design, I'll give you the optimal, perfect idea. In fact, one time in my life, I designed the perfect 10,000 volt high-speed generator, which I'm sure you are very interested in. But the idea that then someone would say, well, yes, you have the optimal design in the world, but we don't like it, redesign it. That immediately introduces another mindset and complications, because you had spent a lot of time coming up with an optimal design. Now you have to come up with a redesign that you're not as motivated to become optimal, and it may be impossible for it to become optimal because of some restraints. So I think that's one of the places we have to look, and we have to look hard. Did that redesign cause some changes that might be in part responsible? But I will tell you this, and we had talked about briefly before, when an engineering system fails, it hardly ever fails for one reason. It fails for a combination of reasons. Maybe, I'm going to hypothesize, not even hypothesize, speculate now. Maybe the design wasn't right, but had the cement been the right cement, it would have worked. Or maybe had the trusses been the right, typically it's 2 or 3 things. I'm sure not sure, but I would guess some of you have been in an airplane that lost an engine, right? I've been 4 times, so I would think, you still keep flying, right? Because there's redundancy built in. So I believe 2 things. Number one, that when this is finally explained, there'll be a multiple series of factors impacting different organizations at different points that'll explain what happened. And number 2, that as much as I'd like to give you an answer today or tomorrow or next week, it's going to take a while. You have to examine the cement, you have to examine the cables, you have to examine the steel bars that went in, you have to examine the loads on the bridge, you have to examine the resting points, you have to examine the pillar. It's going to take a while. It took years to design it. It's going to take a few weeks to decipher it.
And that investigation is going on right now
with
the NTSB,
absolutely.
Overseeing that. I want to ask you, talk about the redundancy,
right?
And one of the things that is interesting about this project, and we now know about a lot of building projects on the campuses of universities in the state of Florida,
right,
is that the universities and colleges themselves have direct oversight.
Sure.
And so the state and the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, really was not as hands-on in this project as they may have been with some other public works or roadway or bridge. Is that a problem right there? Should the state have more oversight, and might that have...
I don't think that's a problem at all. The more you get the state out of the universities' work, the better the universities will function. I basically hired everyone in that department. I know them. These are good people, and they are as good or better than anybody in Tallahassee. I don't think, if you're looking for answers there, that's not going to be an answer. Our building department is more than capable of, well, give you just a number. We built well over $1 billion worth, of buildings and other parts and dormitories at FIU. We've never had something like this.
Rudabeh wants to ask you a question, but I want to first say that somebody made the decision to allow cars, the flow of traffic, and while you're saying that it could be weeks for the investigation into the construction, we should know sooner who made the decision to allow cars to pass while this work was being done.
That actually was my question.
Yes,
So.
there you go.
Well, I think it's a combined decision. The university can't decide that. It has to request, but the authority is, if it's a state highway, with the state. If it's a local, which it isn't, it's with the particular, whether it's Sweetwater or, Dade County. So it is a combinatorial. Someone has to ask and someone has to allow. So even there, you're not going to be able to say the university should have asked.
Big blow for FIU, though.
Enormous blow. I am tremendously sad. I have a son, I have a daughter called Anna, I have a son called Mark, and I have another kid named FIU. So to me,
Well, we're sorry for the entire FIU community and family, and we
you.
appreciate you
Thank
being
you.
here tonight. Thank you, sir.